Welcome to Global Byte. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In early 2026, the United States stands divided, its founding principles tested by a fierce debate over the right to bear arms. The question of who can carry a concealed weapon, and under what conditions, has spilled from courtrooms into daily life, making every public interaction fraught with uncertainty. A tragic shooting in Minneapolis has ignited a national reckoning, forcing Americans to confront whether more guns mean more safety or more danger. The decisions made now will shape the nation's identity and the balance between liberty and security for years to come. Concealed carry laws in America have shifted dramatically over time, reflecting changing attitudes about guns and public safety. For decades, most states tightly restricted concealed weapons, granting permits only at law enforcement's discretion. The 1980s and 90s saw a surge in shall-issue laws, making permits widely accessible to those meeting basic requirements. Landmark Supreme Court cases, Heller, McDonald, and especially Bruen, expanded gun rights, culminating in a wave of permitless carry laws. By late 2025, 29 states allowed concealed carry with little or no permitting, while 21 states maintained stricter standards. This patchwork of laws has set the stage for a fierce federal showdown over national standards. On January 24, 2026, a protest in Minneapolis took a tragic turn that would send shockwaves across the nation. What began as a peaceful demonstration in the heart of the city, with hundreds braving the cold to make their voices heard, quickly escalated into a scene of chaos and violence. In the midst of the crowd, Alex Preddy, a 29-year-old Minneapolis resident and legally armed citizen, was shot and killed by federal agents. The incident unfolded rapidly, with law enforcement responding to reports of unrest and tensions running high between protesters and authorities. Preddy, who held a valid Minnesota permit to carry a firearm, was seen calmly filming officers on his phone. Witnesses say he was not acting aggressively or making any threats. As officers approached, a confrontation ensued. Preddy was disarmed, and within moments he was fatally shot, an act that was captured on multiple bystander videos. The footage quickly spread online, showing that Preddy never pointed his weapon or threatened anyone. The images of his final moments, and the sound of the crowd's disbelief, fueled a wave of public outrage and grief. Demonstrators returned to the streets demanding answers and accountability from both local and federal authorities. Minnesota law is clear. Citizens with valid permits are allowed to carry firearms even at protests, as long as they do not brandish or threaten. Local officials confirmed that Preddy was in full compliance with state law at the time of the shooting, raising serious questions about the actions of the federal agents involved. The killing of Alex Preddy quickly became a national flashpoint, igniting fierce debate over the boundaries of state and federal authority. Legal experts, activists, and ordinary citizens alike questioned whether federal agents had the right to override state law, and what this meant for the rights of lawful gun owners at public demonstrations. Vigils were held in Preddy's memory, and the city was left grappling with the consequences. For gun control advocates, the tragedy was a stark warning about the dangers of allowing firearms at protests. They argued that even legal gun ownership can escalate already tense situations, putting everyone at risk and making it harder for law enforcement to keep the peace. For gun rights supporters, however, Preddy's death was a chilling example of federal overreach and the vulnerability of lawful gun owners. They saw it as a violation of constitutional rights and a call to defend the Second Amendment more vigorously than ever before. The killing of Alex Preddy left Minneapolis and the nation divided, with urgent questions about justice, rights, and the future of protest in America still echoing in its aftermath. The aftermath of Preddy's death saw federal officials make inaccurate statements about Minnesota's gun laws, fueling public anger. Gun rights groups, usually aligned with the administration, broke ranks to defend Preddy's rights, exposing deep divisions within the conservative movement. President Trump's ambivalent comments further alienated his base, while civil liberties and gun rights advocates united in outrage. The incident forced a national debate. Are gun rights truly universal, or do they depend on politics and context? Alex Preddy's death became a rallying cry for both sides, symbolizing the nation's deepening polarization. At the heart of the current conflict is the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, a bill that would require all states to honor each other's concealed carry permits, or lack thereof. This would allow individuals from permitless carry states to legally carry concealed weapons nationwide, overriding stricter state laws. Supporters argue it's a matter of constitutional fairness and self-defense rights that shouldn't end at state lines. Opponents warn it would gut state-level safety standards, forcing states to accept the weakest laws in the country. Law enforcement and gun safety groups call it a dangerous federal overreach. The bill's fate will determine whether gun policy is set locally or by a single national standard. The numbers are stark. Nearly 130 Americans are killed by guns every day, with many more wounded. 29 states now allow permitless carry, while 21 require permits and often live fire training. Polls show that most Americans, including gun owners, support requiring permits for concealed carry, revealing a disconnect between public opinion and state laws. Studies link weaker permitting systems to higher rates of gun assaults, but gun rights advocates argue that armed citizens deter crime. The data is fiercely contested, fueling both sides of the debate. The stakes are clear. The laws we choose have life and death consequences. Federal reciprocity would fundamentally reshape daily life in many parts of the country, especially in states with strict gun laws. By allowing individuals with concealed carry permits from any state to legally carry their firearms across state lines, the law would override local restrictions and dramatically increase the number of people carrying concealed weapons in public spaces. For residents in cities and towns that have long relied on tough permitting processes and background checks, this could mean encountering more armed individuals in everyday settings, on public transportation, in parks, or even in schools and government buildings. The shift would be especially noticeable in urban areas where gun control measures have been a central part of public safety policy. Supporters of federal reciprocity argue that this change would empower law-abiding citizens to protect themselves and their families, no matter where they travel. They claim that criminals are less likely to target communities where more people are armed, and that responsible gun owners could help deter crime or even intervene in dangerous situations. For some, the ability to carry a concealed weapon across state lines is seen as a fundamental right that should not be limited by geography. However, critics warn that the influx of concealed weapons could have serious consequences. They fear that more guns in public will inevitably lead to more violence, accidental shootings, and tragic misunderstandings. Emergency rooms and law enforcement agencies in states with strict gun laws worry about an increase in gun-related injuries and deaths, as well as the potential for confusion and panic during emergencies. Opponents also point to the risk of individuals with minimal training or oversight carrying firearms in densely populated areas. For police officers, the lack of a uniform permitting system across states would make it nearly impossible to quickly verify who is legally armed during routine encounters, such as traffic stops or public disturbances. This uncertainty could increase the risks faced by both officers and civilians, heightening tensions and making already stressful situations even more dangerous. Officers may have to rely on incomplete information, leading to split-second decisions with potentially life-altering consequences. Many law enforcement groups have voiced strong opposition to the bill, warning that it would undermine their ability to enforce local laws and keep communities safe. They argue that the patchwork of state standards for concealed carry permits, ranging from rigorous background checks and training to almost no requirements at all, would make it difficult to maintain order and protect the public. Police chiefs and sheriffs across the country have expressed concern that federal reciprocity could erode trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Beyond public safety, the act also raises major questions about the balance of power between the federal government and the states. By forcing states to accept concealed carry permits issued elsewhere, the law challenges the principle of states' rights and local control over gun policy. This has sparked heated debates in state legislatures and in Congress, with lawmakers on both sides arguing over the proper role of federal authority. In a twist on traditional political alignments, this issue has conservatives, who often champion states' rights, pushing for expanded federal power, while liberals, typically more supportive of federal oversight, are now defending state autonomy. The debate over federal reciprocity is not just about guns. It's about who gets to decide the rules that shape American life, and how far the reach of Washington should extend into the daily lives of citizens across the country. Legal scholars emphasize that Supreme Court rulings, such as the landmark decisions in Heller and Bruin, have established a constitutional right to carry firearms for self-defense. However, these rulings also recognize the authority of states to regulate the manner in which firearms are carried, including the power to set licensing and permitting requirements. This balance between federal constitutional rights and state-level regulation has been a cornerstone of American gun law for decades. Allowing states to tailor their approaches to the unique needs and concerns of their populations. In practice, this means that while the right to carry is protected, states retain significant discretion to determine who is eligible for a permit, what training is required, and how background checks are conducted. These licensing requirements can vary widely from state to state, reflecting different political climates and public safety priorities. Many experts caution that a federal reciprocity law would override these carefully crafted local standards, forcing states to accept permits from jurisdictions with vastly different requirements. This, they argue, could undermine the ability of states to protect their residents according to their own standards and values. Law enforcement officials express concern that such a patchwork system would create confusion and risk for officers on the ground who would be tasked with interpreting and enforcing a complex web of overlapping laws. Police leaders argue that the proposed bill would make their jobs significantly more difficult, as officers would have to quickly determine the validity of out-of-state permits and navigate conflicting regulations during routine encounters. This could lead to mistakes, legal challenges, and potentially dangerous misunderstandings, as officers attempt to enforce laws that may differ dramatically from one jurisdiction to another. On the other hand, gun rights advocates maintain that permit holders are overwhelmingly law-abiding citizens who have already undergone background checks and training in their home states. They argue that reciprocity is a matter of fairness and consistency, ensuring that responsible gun owners do not inadvertently become criminals simply by crossing a state line with their legally owned firearm. Meanwhile, public health researchers point to a growing body of evidence showing that states with stronger permitting systems tend to have lower rates of gun violence and accidental shootings. They warn that weakening these laws by imposing a national standard could have deadly consequences, potentially increasing the risk of gun-related injuries and deaths. The expert consensus on this issue is deeply fractured, with passionate arguments on both sides reflecting the complexity of balancing individual rights with public safety. This ongoing debate mirrors the nation's broader divide over gun policy, with citizens, lawmakers, and experts all weighing in from different perspectives and lived experiences. Ultimately, the conversation is not just about legal technicalities, it's about trust in government, the meaning of safety, and the fundamental question of how much power the federal government should have over states' rights to regulate firearms within their own borders. As the nation debates federal reciprocity, it faces a defining question. Does safety come from more armed citizens or from strong, consistent rules? The Pretty case has stripped away abstractions, forcing Americans to confront the real stakes of the gun debate. The choice is between state autonomy and a uniform national standard for gun rights. The outcome will shape public safety, civil liberties, and the meaning of American freedom. This is a moment for every citizen to engage, reflect, and decide what kind of country we want to be. The story of concealed carry is still being written, and the next chapter depends on the choices we make now.